Hey, how's it going?
Good. How about you?
Very good.
Great. Thanks so much for doing this. I think you've been getting a lot of Instagram Live the past
Yeah,
couple days. Get your practice in.
yeah. No, it was my first ever yesterday, and we're back on today, so that's great.
Awesome. I love it.
Yeah.
Great. So tell the people who you are and what you do. Let's start there.
For sure. Well, I am Patrick Beal. I'm the CEO of Detroit Training Center, and we do vocational ed. So we focus on construction, transportation, manufacturing careers, and basically it's my job to get people paid more money in the shortest possible time frame.
We love that. And so I think Detroit Training Center opened to solve a very specific problem or to offer a solution to a very specific problem that I understand to have sort of, um, exacerbated through the years. So can you kind of tell people, like, give them a little background on, just the type of vocational training that has been available in Detroit and, you know, potentially, you know, how that's led to a massive shortage of people educated in skilled trades?
For sure. Well, yeah, we definitely started. I was a demolition contractor. I did a number of very, pretty large projects downtown and schools and lots of other places. And I just kept running into the issue of needing trained people ready to work. And we had really good wages and still had a hard time finding good talent to fill the positions. And so the first program we ever put together was focused on specifically blight removal. So that means asbestos abatement, lead abatement, OSHA safety, a little bit of equipment use, skid steer, excavator, stuff like that. And it was really focused on how we help with, tearing down abandoned structures. And so, when I came to Detroit, I basically moved here, 12 years ago now. It was certainly at the time one of the largest problems that existed in the city, and it was something that both had just an immediate need to be done, but it also provided some wonderful employment opportunities for a lot of the people that we were able to put through the training. The great part is over time the demand has gone from just tearing down abandoned structures to building or renovating or building brand new. And obviously, as a result, the skills and experience needed is, kind of raised over time and continued to grow and lead to some really wonderful employment opportunities.
Can you give people an idea of, how short we were on skilled trade people? I mean, like, anecdotally, you had trouble hiring people, but are there
Yeah.
facts and figures that we can reference just to understand, like, where we came from and maybe what things are looking like now?
Well, I don't know how to describe it too well, but in many respects, when the city first started putting together their initiatives related to hiring Detroiters, you'd usually see somewhere in the 10 to 12% Detroiters working on a project. So when the city put their goal of 51%, most people considered it impossible. And so we always thought it was actually not that hard, and you just had to focus on it and spend the effort and time and make it happen. But several of the larger projects are getting up to the 30%, 40%. Nobody's really there at 50 yet for the biggest projects, but certainly getting closer and closer as time goes on and more training happens, and some more us and other training centers have been able to open and offer some good programming.
How long does it take to go through a program for demolition, abatement, and things like that? And what does that involve? Is it classroom, on-site, state testing? What does that look like?
Yeah, all depends on which exact program you're doing, but for blight removal, it is basically about half in the classroom, half in the field, depending on which piece of equipment you're training on. So lead and asbestos are in the classroom in kind of our lab, because we don't want to be touching those things for real until you're licensed. And then other things like excavator, skid steer, backhoe, stuff like that's all going to be out in the field for the majority of the time operating the equipment. So it's a 6-week program. When they finish out, they usually are getting somewhere in the region of 1850 an hour now. And that's been really great on Blight. And then some of the other programs, masonry and truck driving and welding, are going to be even higher than that.
And do you have employers that are coming to you and just like waiting for your students to exit the program because they're so short-staffed?
Yeah, right now it is certainly, at different times we've had, too many graduates and not enough employers, and we have to work on that. And right now that is not the problem. We have basically unlimited employment opportunities for those who are willing to show up and do the job. So yeah, right now, for instance, we've got a truck driving company who wants 3,000 people. We've got different employers in the blight removal space who need hundreds each. And certainly our capacity is not quite there. So definitely it's a good time to be looking for a position in construction right now.
Yeah, definitely. And it seems like it would be easy to court people into taking these certification classes at Detroit Training Center, because you're basically like, look, you can complete this and you have decent work ethic. We have a job for you when this is done.
Absolutely. And certainly we meet people every day who, are just trying to make a difference in their lives and make a higher wage. And so absolutely that's a big part of what we do. And then you also have people all over the gamut who are, not as interested in doing what they need to do every day. So it all depends on individual work ethic and the ability to show up and do what's needed. But absolutely, there's just a lot of people in the city who are looking for a new opportunity. We've been able to make that connection 300, 400, 500 a year for the last several years. So it's been really great.
And so we have a question here. Somebody wants to know, when you're done, do you get a journeyman's card, and is there an apprenticeship? I know that you have to do that stuff for carpentry and electrical, but do you have to do that for heavy machinery and blight removal?
It all depends on where you want to go to work and which employer you're working for. So usually those terms are certainly more related to the union side of things, which definitely a lot of our students are going to graduate and end up in a union. Some of them will take our education and start the apprenticeship. So they'll start at that 18, maybe 17 at the lowest, and work their way up. Every 6 months they're going to get a raise for the next 4 years as they complete out their various apprenticeship programs. So we're kind of the pre-apprenticeship model, and certainly get people ready to be a part of those programs. So it could be the safety, it could just be the experience, it could be other things, but there's usually a long wait list for those kind of programs. And so our students, with the education and with the training and with the experience, they're going to be able to get to the top of the list and join that up. But we're much shorter term. So our goal is always to get them to the first rung of the ladder, and they can work their way up from there. They're making good money, and they're going to keep learning on the job. So usually when they're done with us, they're really the most entry level, and then it's either 2 or 4 years to get to that journeyman card.
Okay. So when you say they get to the top of the list, is that because you have some kind of an agreement or understanding with the unions, or are they just looking for that item on the resume that says that they've already completed this and they have just basic level of education and obviously some kind of drive to move on?
Usually our agreement or things are going to be directly with the employers, and the employers will hire the individual. If they're a union employer, they'll put them right into the union. So we definitely talk with the various unions, we're on committees with them. We, help to kind of develop those programs. But at the end of the day, the employers are really the ones driving the train. And so if they hire somebody and put them in, they're going to send them to the union and get them signed up.
And are you the only training organization of this type in Detroit?
There's a few others that do very similar stuff to us, and there's ones that we support and do some of the safety background on some of the other programs. But there's 52 different what they call preferred training providers for the city of Detroit. In the end, or there were at one point. I think we're actually down a little bit from there, but there's about 5 different schools that are pretty similar to us in having related programming. But then there are also the unions, which have been doing a better job of bringing their apprenticeship programs to the city. So it's growing. The number people have. When we started, there were basically 2 of us in total, and now we've both grown up and gotten bigger, and then many other programs have started. And then several of the large nonprofits in town are going to have related programs where we might actually be the provider of the education itself, and they're doing more soft skills and training and back-end support and what we would call career readiness. So that's like Focus Hope and Southwest Solutions and those kind of organizations. And then they'll have their own programs as well. So definitely there's a range now that's much broader than there used to be.
So you mentioned some of the unions are bringing their training programs to Detroit, and something that I kind of heard anecdotally was related to just accessibility in general for Detroiters, that in order to get a heavy machinery education certification, you had to go out to like Washtenaw County or something. And, people who don't have transportation beyond being able to get on a bus, it was impossible. Was that kind of like how it was before you opened?
Yeah, absolutely. In heavy equipment specifically, there are programs in Howell. So a lot of Detroiters, not only is it far, but they didn't necessarily feel comfortable going to Howell due to historical reasons. And what they would certainly say are current reasons as well. But absolutely, it was, we were more accessible. We also are, I would say, more suited and more designed to work with what we call those with barriers to employment. So, many educational programs are going to try and focus on how do we help the best people that apply, and we deselect those that have maybe an issue. Well, at DTC, usually our funding is going to be related to the fact that someone has a barrier to employment. So that might be a recent incarceration. It might be a long-term unemployment. It might be a reading or a physical disability. And instead of being a reason why we wouldn't accept them, that's actually the reason why they're able to come and get it paid for through the city or the state or the federal government or whoever might be funding that individual. So many ways we kind of had the exact opposite take on things than some of the other programs might have, which is very reasonable for them to have. You're going to pick the very best of the people who are available to do things. Well, that just wasn't where we were coming from and what we were looking to do. So our question was, how do we help the people who come through the door and figure out a way to serve them in general?
So I'm glad you mentioned funding. So are all of your programs free to applicants, or do they have to apply for financial aid or scholarship? Where does your funding come from? Yeah.
So we never use the word free because somebody's got to pay for it.
Sure.
But at the end of the day, yeah, the vast majority of students who are coming to our program are not paying themselves. So they're getting funded through a philanthropic organization. They're getting funded through a large nonprofit, or the largest component is the city of Detroit itself. So certainly people have heard about the fines related to non-compliance for labor participation.
Explain it if you could, please.
Yeah. Well, if it's a larger project in the city, there's going to be a requirement that they hire 51% Detroiters, and nobody's been able to do that yet. And basically, what they do with the fines is then go out and put together training grants or other opportunities that we can reply to in an RFP. And we'll do that and basically get a certain number of students funded for a program at a time. And then there's also just a certain amount of city funds that come out of the general city budget that are spent on this type of vocational training. And then the bigger part for the rest of the state is the Michigan work system. So it's much cheaper to train somebody and get them a new job than to continue paying unemployment for a long period of time. And so it's just a better deal for the state to hire us and get somebody through.
It's investing in its citizens. Yeah.
Absolutely. And they make it back in tax money in 6 months, 8 months, no more than 2 years. And then we also work for the Department of Corrections. So the cost savings of someone not ending up back in prison are phenomenal. And so the state's certainly willing to make some investments to help make sure those who are getting out of prison have a good opportunity to make it. And so that's another component of what we do. And then we also serve veterans. So those who serve their country, the United States government's going to fund through the GI Bill and other programs, way to give back to those veterans who are looking for a new opportunity as well. So all depends where they're coming from. And then, even we work with Southwest Solutions for recent immigrants, or we work with the PATH program for single mothers, or we work with DRMM for homeless veterans. So it really depends on who each organization is targeting. But at the end of the day, it's generally, around that. There's a barrier. If we can add the education and the certification, we're going to remove that barrier to employment. We're going to make it so much more valuable for an employer to want that person and to make the investment. And we just make it cheaper and easier to hire that person, and the employers are going to take it from there.
So just a side note about this fine, right, is that developers and contractors, they don't even try, like they know they can't fill the obligation of 51% Detroiters right now. So they actually build that cost into their estimates and their pro formas, knowing that they will have to pay it. So at some point, it sounds like, when do you anticipate we might be able to tip the scales in the other direction, that we'll have that 51%? When do you anticipate that might happen?
It doesn't seem like people are really making the effort to get there. To be honest, I wish I would say that I think we're a year away or something like that. But the truth is, the huge projects that are occurring in the city would just naturally have a regional workforce. And so I think it's fantastic that these rules exist, because the city should get some benefits out of these large projects happening in the city. At the end of the day, it's probably structurally difficult. And so there's going to be a gap there for a while.
And
now,
why is that?
Just that construction projects will usually be done by people coming from an hour and a half regional workforce. Just in the normal project scope, that would be pretty common without these requirements. Now, 10% Detroiters certainly isn't uncommon. That meant that there was a dearth. That meant there was a gap there where they absolutely should have had just dramatically more labor. So there certainly is and was just a lack of skills that needed to be involved. But then after that was done, certainly we're getting closer to what I'd say the more natural numbers, but we're definitely still not there either. So there's a lot of room to do better.
So do you think it's just because these contractors or developers don't want to put in the effort, or it's just easier to pay the fine at this point? Or is
I would say that's
something?
Yeah, it's not their job. They want to build a building. They're not necessarily thinking about these things. So, my job was hiring the people to do the projects in the city, and to me, it was just so much easier to figure out a way to train new people than to try and find one or two that already have the skills. But at the end of the day, people are focused on their individual thing, and that's not necessarily solving this problem. Now, there are some great employers out there who have really made the effort, and really put in some great investments. And you see that from, for instance, Saxe and some of these other organizations are going out to the high schools and making investments in Randolph vocational and doing some great things. We've seen some awesome contributions from the concrete companies, Paracon and Superior Materials and others like that that are really putting in the effort, putting their money where their mouth is, and moving forward. But it's a lot of work, and lead time is wrong for them. So if you want a carpenter today, because you have a project to do, well, you needed to start training that carpenter 6 months or 4 years ago, depending on what level of carpenter you want. So it just doesn't line up for the incentive. And so that's why the city needs to be involved. That's why CREO exists, the Civil Rights and Inclusion Office. And so, you know, their job is to think about it much more comprehensively and say, okay, well, everybody's going to need this person next year. So let's go ahead and train them and get them ready to go. And then when it's time for that project, they'll be trained up and available for hire. So the lead time is probably the biggest reason why the even ones who care and want to help with this issue, it's just really hard for them to do it without a training program, without a comprehensive kind of solution.
Okay. I want to ask about your instructors. Who are they? Where did, what backgrounds are they from? And then do you have special instructors that are available, like you said, for people who have learning disabilities or reading issues, or, is not your average instructor? Is this somebody that has like more skill sets, or do you hire different people to handle the different components of people to meet people where they are, like you said?
Yeah, so there's going to be two major categories of people who work at DTC. So the first one is going to be the instructors, and so they're going to come from possibly retired out of the trades. They might be active in the industry. They might be, working yesterday as a person in the field, and we hired them to come to the school. But then we're also going to have career counselors. And so those career counselors are much more social work or nonprofit focused people who are really caring about individuals and their barriers and their backgrounds and things like that. And so those two groups work together, because the instructors are going to know what the employers need, and the career counselors know what the individuals need. And so when they kind of meet together, they're able to serve both the student, but then also get them ready for that employer. And then for COVID, and we've had to move a lot of things online, we've also added the class administrator. So this is our technology person, the person who's going to do the communications, the setting up of Zoom calls and things like that, where our instructors are certainly not those people. So then we've kind of got those three types working together. We've got our tech person, we've got our instructor, and we've got our career counselor. So with the combination of that, we're really able to be empathetic to the individual, but also firm to the requirements of the employer. And it's a very fine line to walk that, because everybody's got things, everybody's got individual issues that they're dealing with in their life. But at the end of the day, if they want to have a job in this field, they got to be there at 7 every day for weeks on end. And so we've got to get them ready for that type of position.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We had another question come in, and I think we kind of touched on this before, but wanted to know if Detroit Training Center places their grads only in union positions, or there are opportunities for small business builders to recruit your students.
Absolutely. No, we are completely open to the different opportunities. At the end of the day, my goal is to give my students the best possible wage. So in that case, unions certainly make a good offer. But anybody who wants to make an offer to one of our students, we highly encourage them to come, stop by, see what we've got going on, send us an email. I'm Patrick at DetroitTraining.com. We'd love to put your job opening up. We got a job board physically, we got one digitally, and then we've got the career counselors who just kind of act like a giant funnel for you. So if you let us know what your hiring needs are, we'll work through those things. It might be background check requirements, drug testing, driver's license issues, whatever your requirements are as an employer. We're gonna work through who we have available, who's ready to go, and make that connection. And then, at the end of the day, the student has all the choice in the world. So, if you make a good offer, they're going to come to work for you.
Yeah. So what's the breadth of what kind of training you give? So we talked about heavy machinery. We talked about blight removal. I've seen on your Instagram teaching people how to frame indoors. I know that I'm involved with your organization to help teach some real estate related classes. So so what's your core? And then it sounds like maybe we've got some other things going on. So I'd love to hear about like everything that you guys have going on.
Absolutely. So the core is definitely what we call workforce development training programs. So that's going to be 6 to 12 weeks, depending on if it's day or evening. So if nights and weekends will be twice as long, half as many hours per week, but 6 to 12 weeks. And that's going to focus on heavy equipment, masonry, truck driving, and welding and blight removal. And then we also have many other classes that are more designed for homeowners or developers or new contractors. So we teach a Michigan Residential Builder's License class. We teach a real estate salesperson class. And then we also teach what we call the Home Renovation Workshop Series. So this is going to be on Saturdays, 3 hours at a time. Come out and learn how to do carpentry or drywall or as you mentioned, doors or windows or refinish hardwood. And so those are, really focused on people who want to learn a particular skill, but then aren't kind of the lengthy program that's designed just to put you in a job. It's really designed more to get you some information and make you useful on your own project. So we've always kind of tried to combine those various things and kind of offer what people are looking for and what, we do a lot of surveying and see what classes people want to see next.
That's so great. And so how do people find out about what you're doing? How do they sign up?
The easiest one's our website, DetroitTraining.com. It's definitely going to have all the info. Facebook also is going to get updated on a minute-by-minute basis in terms of what we're doing, and we're always putting up new information there. So I definitely check out those, DetroitTraining.com, and then Facebook/Detroit Training, and that's probably the easiest ways. I would also historically have said we have orientations 4 times a week, although we've certainly not been doing that over the last year. So it's been much more phone calls and website visits, and then we get people connected into those programs.
So when you say orientation, do you mean just kind of an informational session to explain what you do and see if people might be interested in joining?
Yeah, so we have a lot of partner organizations that have either sent people in the past and seen the success, or just hear about things as well. And so they'll send some of the people they're serving. Might be a church, might be a nonprofit group, might be a parole agent who's working with a recent parolee. So basically, we would always just kind of have a open doors. Come check out what we had going on. We've had to close that for the year, but we're certainly hoping to get back to it soon. And we've taken some of those orientations, put them more on Facebook. So we do some live Facebook stuff. We do just a lot more one-on-one phone calls than we used to as well. So.
Yeah, so that's a good segue. I did want to know, how did the past year and the pandemic change what you do? So do you have stuff in the classroom, or when did you have to stop completely at a certain point?
So we were probably down for a good 2.5, 3 months, completely shut in the building. What we did pretty much immediately after, realizing that this is going to be not just a short-term thing, we took everything that we taught inside of a classroom and we put it online. So we do live stream instructors. We don't do any self-paced activities. We haven't really found any success there. So we do everything with instructors live over Zoom or Google Meet, and kind of bring the instructors to the people on the internet. And then depending on what type of class it is, they'll have the non-classroom portions outside and distanced and all that. So For instance, a good example would be our excavator class. The first 4 hours are on Zoom. Everybody does their safety exam. They learn about the OSHA components. And then for the afternoon, for the first day, they're going to meet the instructor out at the excavators in the yard and operate for the rest of the week. So kind of try to, we call it the hybrid model, taking everything we can, put it on the internet, and everything we couldn't, and just making sure that's outside and in a way that works for people. Flip side of that is we do a lot of things that are highly government regulated. So those weren't necessarily our options of what to do. And so we're continuing to do those in the same way that the government requires us to. So that might be asbestos abatement or lead abatement or classes like that, where there's just really specific rules about what we can and can't do. And so we've got to follow those.
Okay. And so I know that your facility is in Core City, I believe that we are calling that neighborhood.
Yeah, I didn't hear about Core City's name until long after I moved there with the business, but that's certainly what we're calling it now.
Yeah. Well, just ask a realtor; they'll come up with a name for anything.
That's right. Well, I think a realtor would call it North Corktown if they're smart. So you got to be careful.
Yeah, that's the big money name for sure.
Yeah. If they're trying to help someone buy a house, it's Core City. If they're trying to sell a house, it's North Corktown.
Right, for sure. So what other locations of the city are, where's your equipment? You don't have to give me exact location, but, just give me an idea where things are spread out.
So we actually were founded in the back of Focus Hope. So started on Davison Freeway there, and we're very happy to serve Focus Hope and some of their programs in the beginning. Eventually, we kind of outgrew that space and worked with Reclaim Detroit for a long time and some of their space. And then Michigan Urban Farm Initiative in North End. And so we kind of started all in that area. And then Alta Equipment, which has been a fantastic partner of DTC, actually built us out our school. We did everything after that, but really helped to set us up in Core City. And so we're really happy about that. And then now we do classes in Southwest Detroit. We do some in Corktown, some in Near East Side neighborhoods, and a lot there right at Core City. So all depends on what class it is. Heavy equipment moves the most. And then our truck driving program is at Russell Industrial Complex. So right along 75 at Mac Ave.
Okay. So, but it sounds like besides the courses where you're going to need specialized equipment, you bring the knowledge to the people.
Yeah, we try and be where people are. And at the end of the day, a lot of our students are riding the bus. A lot of students are, walking to the school. So our location is super important to make that work.
Yeah, absolutely. So give me a sense of your organization, the people in your organization, how many people work there, how many instructors do you have, what are the various, how layered are your human resources?
For sure. Well, unfortunately, not quite as many as we had a year ago, but we've got about, I think, 11 active instructors working every day or in a program. And then we've got 5 career counselors and I guess four career counselors and three of these class administrators, and then 5 or 6 different support staff of various types. So depends on which program what we're doing, but definitely truck driving requires the most instructors per student. So that one's got by far and away our most number of instructors, and then we've got people in heavy equipment, welding, and masonry as well.
How many students are you graduating out of your core programs every year?
So it was about 400 people last year, and obviously last year wasn't as good as the year before that. So I think it was 450 prior to that, and then down to 400 in the last year that was measured, and then it'll be this most recent year will be even a little bit lower than that, maybe 300, and then we're certainly hoping to get back to 500 next year.
And is it just because you don't right now the resources to kind of bring more people in are, it's just kind of harder to do everything right now, or is there less demand right now?
Well, it's a combination of things. The process to get funding is more difficult right now, and certainly has been over the year, because the offices where they go to sign up for that were closed, and so that made a big impact. And then childcare is a major issue. If people don't have good childcare, then they're not able to go to training, and they're not able to get a new job. And so a lot of the people we're meeting that aren't able to start, it's related to the childcare issues that they're facing. So I'd say that's probably the biggest barrier this most recent term, and then it depends on the employer and what they're looking for as well. So drug testing has been a bigger and bigger issue as legalization has happened for marijuana, as the majority of the highest wage occupations are going to have drug testing requirements. So the number of students who have just not been able to join after being interested has certainly gone up in the last year, both due to things they're saying, hey, I can't because I've got these things happen in my life, which obviously make perfect sense. And then also we're just having a larger number of students fail the incoming screening than used to be in the past.
Do your funding partners understand the issue with childcare? Like, are they working to help resolve it? Because I don't, I'm imagining it's going to be an issue for at least another year.
Yeah, the problem is the ones that tried to solve it are actually in the worst case, because they tried to solve it and then had to shut their solution down. So in many ways, it's definitely a component that many of the nonprofit partners we work with look at and think about. But at the end of the day, this last year, I mean, even schools shut down. So it wasn't even people, who had kids under school age. It was everybody.
Right.
And so usually if there's two parents and one of them has a good job and the other one's in transition, the one in transition is going to be the one who takes care of the kids.
Absolutely.
And so that's definitely, part of it. And then the other part is just simply there's just more, more people who had things happen they didn't expect. So on Monday, they'd hear school's going to be closed on Tuesday. And that, kind of pulled them out of the opportunity of getting that training and getting to work. So, but that, is only a percentage of the people. Good enough of their group are certainly showing up every day and making it work and figuring out those things, but certainly not with any kind of formal, daycare or other thing. It's much more informal now. So.
Was I just going to ask? Oh, the percentage of men and women. Do you, how would you say it kind of breaks down between like men that are interested in getting this training versus women? I think historically think of this as like more of a male dominated field. Has opening up training opportunities brought more women in?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So we're way higher than the industry, which is close to like 3% women in construction and other places that we deal with. It's very low current numbers, and we're probably closer to 25% women who are coming through the programs. And so we've even been, part of women-focused solutions. So the Department of Transportation has a program, for instance. If you're a woman who works in the office in a construction firm, you can actually get training through the Department of Transportation to go out and be a field worker and increase your pay and get an excavator operator position or a truck driver position or something like that. And it's kind of funny how low the requirements are, but there's a requirement that 6% of labor in Department of Transportation projects be women labor. And so they still have a hard time fulfilling that. And so we're part of the solution. But At the end of the day, there's certainly far more opportunities for women in construction than there ever were before. And we're not really seeing the issues of getting involved that we even saw at the beginning when we started the school. And I had to fire some employers that we worked with that clearly weren't taking the right steps. So unfortunately, it was not the best conversations to have that, hey, we don't really want to work with you anymore. We've seen a repetitive habit, and that has certainly been a problem we saw. But at the end of the day, now everybody is looking for that talent, and they're just much more willing to make the effort. And I think they've also just seen that, at the end of the day, if someone's willing to show up and do the job, you better give them a shot, because it's going to be hard to find somebody else.
Absolutely. And I would imagine going through a training program and working with your counselors maybe it just makes it more comfortable for women entering like a very heavily male dominated field. Like it just maybe instills a little bit more confidence, gives them just the support they need to kind of get in there and, kick some butt.
Yeah, absolutely. At the end of the day, you're going to take some shit, as I would say. Yeah. And you better be ready to give some shit back. So the program can kind of help with that. And I've actually seen it on the operator side. Frequently, the women are faster to pick it up. And so depends what industry they're going into. But yeah, the career counselors can help with that. The other students in class help with that. The instructors help with that. And then really the employers that we've partnered with, and we've been very strategic in that they're coming in and they're encouraging the candidates as well. Hey, we want you to work for us. And, if you have a problem, we want to hear about it. We want to solve it as fast as possible. And the problem for women in construction is not just getting hired. It's retention as well. And so that over time, there's been a higher rate of leaving the workforce in addition to a lower rate of joining. And so I think that we've worked on both of those problems. And so, it's definitely more open for women than it's ever been before. Not going to say it's an easy road, but it's not an easy road for anybody. It's a lot of hard work for everybody, and you're going to get a lot of shit as a new person, regardless of who you are. And if you're able to kind of deal with that and give it back and show up every day and do what you're supposed to do, it's going to be a good opportunity for you.
Can you talk about some specific success stories? Does anybody come to mind? Like, no naming names, but
yeah.
Are there certain students that come to mind that were in this position when they came to you and just really thrived, and now that they've got this role and that they've really succeeded? Like, can you just give us any examples that come to mind?
Yeah, so actually in our first cohort ever, in 2012, we had a student who is now one of our instructors and is leaving us, unfortunately, to go take a position, a high level position at a construction company. He'll be in charge of 50, 60 people working in the field every day. And it's fantastic to see. Obviously we're disappointed to lose him, but at the end of the day, he's made the career transition first, going out and working in the industry for a long time, then coming to us, and now going back out with an even higher level position. So that's always exciting to see. And then we do a lot of training for new contractors. So we've trained, people who've come through our program, then ended up in the contractor class, then started their own business, 30, 40 people at this point. So, and 600 total people in the contractor class that have now started their own business. So each and every one of those is awesome to see. And then our favorite thing is when we train somebody, they go out, they start their business, and they come back and they hire some fellow grads. So we've definitely seen more and more of that over the last year. And then the city's actually done a fantastic job over the last couple of years. And I got to give a big shout out to Brenda Jones and some of the political figures in the city for really pushing Detroit resident businesses and Black-owned businesses and women-owned businesses to get more involved in the larger contracts. And so we've seen some incredible success with some recent grads and people who are going out and getting those contracts. So that's always been exciting to see. We have some other grads who've gone on to safety officer positions or other, kind of high level construction jobs. One student actually came back and told me how much he made last year, and I got a little jealous. So there's people doing better than I am, and that's even awesome to see, even more cool. So
I like that. It's like coming back to your old high school and connecting with your teachers,
yeah, absolutely. And we're always, in that regard, there's a huge difference between you and the people who are teaching you. For us, we're all adults, most of our students are 24 to 55 and similar for the instructors. So we're all kind of working towards the same goal, not quite the stratification you have in a normal school. So at the end of the day, there's going to be an in and out of instructors and going back in and out to the field, and working with the various employers. So it's always great to see, just fantastic to see the success. And then recently, wages have gone up dramatically in the last year. So probably $3-4 an hour.
Supply and demand, right?
It's a beautiful thing. So yeah, I'd say, in the last year, we've gotten the average student we just got a new scorecard. One program was at 22, one program was at 19, and we're talking about 6 weeks of training. So compare a job at 22 to the average college grad with 4 years into it. And they're getting a quicker success than those programs. So.
And that's life changing, when previously you had access to minimum wage jobs, and with 6 weeks of training, you basically can, start to feed your family, So
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've got one opportunity right now. There'll be a class, 3-day class. You graduate, you take the test, automatic job at 17 an hour, and within a year we make it 19. And so 3 days of education gets you to $17 an hour. Just, think about how many people are stuck in a spot far below that and can really get out in a week and get a new position that they're looking for. Even forklift drivers is a 1-day class that we offer. We're now getting a lot of offers at $17.50, $18, $19 an hour recently of people looking to hire forklift operators, and in groups of hundreds, and are having a hard time finding those people who are looking for the opportunity.
So I want to talk about your background a little bit. So as you mentioned at the very beginning, you were a demolition contractor.
Yeah.
And so you're, working on site, managing a team, trying to find people to work for your company. Do you have any background in running a vocational training center? What was the aha moment where you're like, I need to do this? Or, how did that happen?
So actually, I needed to find people. I couldn't find enough people. We got approached by the Department of Corrections, and they said, hey, can you hire our people? And we said, absolutely. We don't have any rules about that. We've got no issue dealing with somebody who's coming out of prison. How do we do that? And so at first, it was just a matter of working with parole agents and making that connection, and we would hire somebody, and they wouldn't have any kind of training or knowledge, and they'd show up on the job site, and I'd give them a hard hat, and they'd put it on backwards, and we'd be off and doing work. And eventually, what we found is it just wasn't making the connection a high enough percentage of the time. So people were coming and going too much. There's too much hiring and firing, and too many problems that could just be solved with really simple education and programming. And so we put together a program for ourselves and started hiring out of it. And then there was this weird thing where the government would subsidize the first 90 days of someone's employment. And so we were able to take advantage of that. But then we didn't, get rid of the people. We kept them on. And I guess that was rare. Some of the other employers were abusing the program. And so they would fire a person on 91 days and hire a new subsidized person. And so that was, I mean, wouldn't make any sense to me because the whole reason I was doing it was to find good people. The
Right.
worst thing you could ever do is get rid of someone who's you've trained for 3 months. This doesn't
Right.
make any sense. But apparently it was happening. And so when they saw that, they saw who was doing it, who wasn't doing it, and they came to us and said, hey, could you put this program on for other people, your competitors, basically? And I said, no, this is part of our competitive advantage. We have worked really hard to put this together. But then I was able to see kind of the cool parts about training and get more into the classroom myself and do things. And it really made sense to me. And then as an employer, and this isn't a great way to put it, but it's kind of your job to figure out how you pay the least amount of money to people
Mm-hmm.
and do the biggest thing with the least pay. And that's the game you got to play. And to me, where it kind of clicked to me and where I wanted to move over was I realized that if I ran a school, it'd be my job to get people paid more money.
Mm-hmm.
And that felt great. So every day I got to show up and, I felt like my incentives aligned with what I wanted to do. And I was able to really create a job for myself that didn't exist. Otherwise, I made it. And that job was to get people paid more. And then if I did that well and I did it repetitively, I'd get paid more. And so that was kind of where it transitioned from something I was doing for myself to something I was doing for everybody else and still getting paid to do that.
Yeah, and it sounds like maybe that filled your soul more than just working on the construction site.
Yeah, there's some really cool things about construction, and I love the construction project. I love getting done with stuff. I always say that's one of my favorite things about construction. Almost nothing else in the world can you finish. If you do taxes, guess what? Next year you got to do the taxes again. If are selling real estate, as soon as you close that house, you got to go get another client and sell another house. And so in construction, there's just something uniquely cool about when you're done with the project. It's done. It's going to last. If you did a good job, it's going to last 30, 40, 50 years. And so it's just really cool to get finished. But in training, there was just something even cooler, which was seeing the results of those people making more money and getting out the other side happy and successful and paying their bills and buying houses and cars and kind of filling their goals, which just felt great.
How has your role changed? Were you more like really hands-on at the beginning and now you're more CEO oversight?
Yeah, definitely. So I was the asbestos abatement instructor. That was my first job in the school, and so I didn't even come over for full time for about a year after we started, and so I was just teaching and helping with coordination. Then where I really kind of was able to step up was when we hired some good instructors, and I was able to then do more program management and employer attraction. So a huge part of my job is figuring out how to get funding for the students, how to apply for that funding, or work with those employers. And then over the last year, unfortunately, I had to go back to the basics, and we had to really rework every program. So it became much more about converting from physical to digital and things like that. But yeah, definitely it started as an actual instructor. I actually did programs inside prison. So I would go work in a prison for 10 hours a day. And, I did many weeks that way and other types of programs. So all depends on what we were doing, but certainly it was more teaching. Now I don't, I'd say have to teach. I actually didn't love teaching that much. The teaching part is not my favorite part. The favorite part is that employer connection part. That's been great to be able to kind of transition to that full time.
So I did get asked by one of my associates, Todd Sykes. I don't know if he's still on here, but he wanted to know, if Detroit Training Center, if somebody wanted to volunteer for you, are there volunteer opportunities, or how can we help Detroit Training Center? You know, what can the people do to, you know, help spread the word and help you do what you do?
For sure. Well, we're a C corporation, so I don't really use volunteers in the same way that many of our, you know, other nonprofit partners do. But we do absolutely love it when we're able to make the connections with employers. So the biggest help anybody can have to DTC is send us people looking to hire, and especially now that hiring's gotten so hard, send us people who are willing to invest in their workforce.
Mm-hmm.
And that connection is huge. We're looking for more employers who are really willing to make that effort. And it's hard to find and it's hard to do. It takes time, it takes effort, it's a huge risk, right? You can put a lot of time and money into somebody and it not work out. And so that's really the biggest connection. We're desperately, I'm not desperately, we got more than enough employers right now, but we're always looking for more, especially those who are willing to make the investment themselves. So that's probably the best way to connect. And then if people are looking for volunteer opportunities, we have many nonprofit partners we would love to refer you to. There's a dearth of foundational skills, reading, math, comprehension, that absolutely have to be paired with some of the things that we do. And we definitely would love to send volunteers out. And then we're always looking for Saturday workshop instructors. So if you got a skill and you want to do 3 hours or 6 hours on a Saturday, drywall, carpentry, roofing, whatever it might be, there's an opportunity to come out and put on a workshop. So definitely, you know, real estate, as we've been talking about with you, how do we get that information? And the cool part is nobody's a teacher. Nobody's full-time job is teaching in that respect. They're all going to be hands dirty, doing exactly what they're teaching, type of people. So that is really one of the great ways to make the connection. But certainly if they're interested in learning more, I'd direct them to our website and see what we got going on. And then we're always looking to develop a new program. So if you know about a area of employment where there's some sustained, you know, demand for people, and it's not just a fad and it's not going to be gone 6 months from now, but there's really long-term demand with high wages, we'd love to look at how to put a program together. And certainly we've gotten help from people all over the place doing that program development.
Have you thought about getting into like coding, programming, computer coding?
So we did look at especially CAD, more related to what we do in construction and other things. The problem that we've seen is that, you know, at the end of the day, there's a gap between, you know, what high school graduation, you know, expectations are versus some of those things. So there's just a lot longer duration that people are going to have to learn. And so when we put those type of programs together, they worked okay. They didn't have that immediate return that we really love. Mm-hmm. So, you know, 6 weeks from now, I'm not going to be able to teach you how to code. I'm not going to be able to teach you CAD. Mm-hmm. You're going to have to do a lot of things, but, you know, we can get you a job welding. So we really focused it back on those kind of more hard skills.
Yeah.
And then also things that are certifications or licenses happen to have the highest kind of flip of money. And things that require more knowledge are going to be slower. So even things like renovating a house, like being a full renovator, is much more complex. And so the path to full success is actually years rather than weeks. And so you know, if we can focus on things like asbestos or lead, you know, same wage increase, much shorter duration of training.
I love it. Patrick, thank you so much for your time. I was completely enthralled by the conversation. I think it's just really nice to know more about what you do and the passion you have for it. So thank you. And so everybody wants to find out more, DetroitTraining.org.
.com,
DetroitTraining.com, and also your Facebook page has a lot of information on there.
Definitely. Well, thanks so much for having me, and we're really excited about having you to teach about home ownership and buying a home in the city. It's been fantastic to see the increase in demand for both getting involved with a land bank or other opportunities in the city, and then and like everything we do at DTC, it's always killing two birds with one stone. So if there was increase in demand for houses, but there wasn't a good way to buy them, that wouldn't be very helpful. But now we have both great opportunities to purchase, but also great programs. So, first home mortgage program or City of Detroit discounted mortgages or lower down payment programs. So it's really been great to see these kind of things develop, and we're excited to certainly have you share your experience and knowledge with some of these people looking to be small developers as well. So
I'm super excited for that Saturday. Okay, well, everybody, thanks so much for tuning in. We really appreciate you coming on here and checking this out. If you know anybody, you want to lift up a small business or somebody that's doing something interesting in Detroit, I'm always looking for a wide variety, a big diverse group of people and topics. So make sure you DM me if you have a suggestion for me. And Patrick and everybody, have a great night.
definitely. Well, thanks everybody.
All right, bye-bye.